Looks like we're fine, guys. Sorry for short delay or long delay. I don't know how it was for me. It was like much time. So let's start the weekly MSI demo. And as I told you a little bit earlier, we are on a Hacktoberfest, and a lot of guys here with us. So it's probably it's probably the biggest audience we have ever had before, and we have a pretty heavy agenda for today. So we will show what was done in the scope of the MSI project during the current week. Unfortunately, our product owner can't attend today's meeting because of the unexpected visit to his dentist. So, but we will make a recording and share with him. So all the question which would be raised to the product owner would be answered along the week. So it's not a problem, because all of our work and all of our questions will be recorded. So as I shared a little bit earlier in the MSI Slack chat, we have next agenda. So Bartek from
Poland?
No, I didn't mean Poland. I mean from Bolt.
Okay. Yes.
We'll share his result regarding the default source and stock installation and their linkage. So I believe Bartek, you can share your screen.
Yes.
And start the presentation.
You cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Yeah. So I remove my sharing. You can share.
No? Okay.
Yes.
Hi guys. Hi everyone. I would like to show my work that I done during last week, and let's start from my ADB. There is inventory source table, which is empty right now, and inventory stock, which is empty too, and with setup upgrade. It's pretty the same when you install your Magento first time. My module, catalog inventory, is not installed right now, so setup upgrade should provide all actions and also install data action, which I wrote. So let's start. Okay, it seems that everything is done right now. So in our inventory source table, as you can see, there is default source with source ID 1, which is every time is set to 1. It's reserved for default source, and provide data for country ID default US and postcode set to 0s. In inventory stock, there is also default stock with stock ID 1, which is reserved to default stock. All this function is covered by web API test, which is check that that default source and default stocks is properly installed. So I can demonstrate you get default stock test. It checks that default source with ID 1 exists in data tables after install. as you can see, there is one test, one assertion. Everything is okay. That's all for stock and inventory default installation. And next step, I don't have enough time to show you my linkage, but next step is add in install data script, add linkage between default stock and default source, and also cover it with web API tests. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bartek. And I just want to add that the task which Bartek is working on is very important, because actually it removes it adds the seamless for users, for merchants who will use Magenta with the MSI on board, but will still use Magenta as a single stock system. So actually adding MSI, we don't need affect in any way the user experience of those who use the single stock Magenta. So they no need to have some additional sophisticated management of sources and the stocks and their linkage if they still have the only stock. So for those merchants, all that work would be done under the hood by Magenta itself. So we don't add any complexity for those who no need it. That's why actually we have that story where which was presented just by Bartek. So another story in our agenda would be showed by Alessandra, and it's about the reservation cleanup.
Yes. Try to share my screen. Here you go. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This week we had a lot of discussion about how to implement reservation cleanup, whether to implement it as using the common partner or not. Then we choose to go the simpler way, and I'll show you a little demo. I won't go through all the steps of creating from scratch sources and stock and assigning product to sources. We start from where we left last week. Consider that we have these two stock that are the virtual aggregations of our sources. I'll show you that in my situation, my DB at the moment has only product associated to the Italian stock, which is stock ID number 6. I will add some reservations for the simple product. This time on stock ID 7. I have 200 products. Let's say that an order comes in and we have to reserve 10 stocks from this stock, and then for some reason we have a return of 5, then 2, and then 3. Oops, I did a mistake here. Let's start again. So the stock ID I want to work with is 7. So let's say an order arrives and we reserve 10 quantities, then 5, 3, 2, and 10. Okay, at this point, what I expect to see is that the reservation were added to the reservation table, as you can see here in my DB. But as you can also see here at the end of my script, the total quantity for this product is still 200 because the sum of this reservation actually is 0. So I implemented this cleanup service that once that can be run via cron job, or we still have to decide which strategy to use to run this cleanup service. By the way, after the service run, what happens is that this table has been cleaned and all the reservation that are related to the same stock ID and the same product whose sum is 0 are wiped out, because at the end they are useless, since don't have any impact on the total product quantity on that stock. My next step is that of covering all this code with integration test, because I still have to implement it. I can show you where this reservation cleanup has been implemented. It's an SPI, as suggested by Valera. It's been implemented as SPI, so it can be customized, because you can decide to apply a different strategy in cleaning up your reservation. So it's not a public API. This is an internal mechanism that will be run internally by Magento. As I was saying, my next step is covering functionality with integration test. I'm also working on Reservation Builder, because this week we had discussion about also about Reservation Builder. I still have to complete the refactoring, and we decided to move validation inside the builder and not using entity validation, because Reservation Builder is not an entity. So this is another interesting point about the architecture we are structuring. I have some questions, but if we have time at the end, I will ask them at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
If you have any questions.
So the next section of our presentation would be shown by Sergey, and his small presentation would be devoted for the improving inventory modularity and eliminated dependency on the catalog.
So, good evening, everyone. Select the screen. Yeah, this one. So, I hope you can see. All right, so where would I start? Yeah, basically, during the hackathon in Brussels, I was trying to split modules from inventory to inventory catalog, also trying to look into APIs. So I started with a small audit and discovered that there is actually a foreign key relationship in the database built in between inventory and catalog, which is pointing to the SKU field. So that was a little bit dissuading. I asked about it from Igor, and apparently it was a bug. So one of my first steps here was basically just to remove this foreign key. And now with the reinstall, which I have in my Docker environment, for example, this inventory source item, structure, yeah, in the relation view, yeah, that key is gone completely. So pull request is standing out there. And I plan to carry on with improving the modularity and separating inventory from catalog to a dedicated module. I guess that's it for me.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Sergey. I just want to say that this week is very important, because we don't have actually we eliminated the dependency on a database level. And we in Magento 2, we don't recommend to have foreign key dependencies on the tables which are defined in other modules, because the tables consider it as a private implementation of the module, but not the API part of the module. That's why actually such dependency could lead to unexpected breaking when you would be upgrading even for the for the patch and the minor releases of the system. That's why actually the correct modular design will also provide additional benefit, because potentially the system new inventory could be deployed as a independent microservice with having all own APIs and providing accessibility to it using the headless approach. So that's why it's very important to eliminate such dependencies. So another presentation would be done by Vitaly, and it would be devoted for the index invalidation. So we have an ability to make a full reindex at some point of time, and Vitaly will show that how it's implemented.
Yes, okay, thank you. Hello. 1 second, I try to share my screen. Okay, let's go to Magenta admin panel, and I check my session. 1 second. I have now indexer in valid status and 2 sources, Italy and Ukraine. 1 product that has assigned these sources, Italy. 1 second. With quantity 3 and 5 for Italy and Ukraine. And let's try to assign sources to Europe stock. For example, both of sources, and click Save. After this, we need to check that indexer switch status to invalid. It's correct. Need to reindex our indexer. Check that data not populated before full reindex. Run reindex and check that data for this stock is populated. And our indexer change status to valid again. Okay. After this, we can unassign, for example, Italy source from Europe stock. Click Save. Check that our indexer switch status to invalid again. Reindex our indexer data, index data. Check that data was changed to only stay sources for this stock. And our indexer switch to valid status again. And my changes was covered by integration tests, assign and unassign functionality. And it's okay, it's all. Any questions?
I believe that if there would be some questions, they will arrive a little bit later when Mark will watch the presentation. But actually, I just want to mention that additional sophistication for this task was added to the fact that we decided to introduce multidimensional indexes, and we did not have multidimensional indexes before that. So actually multidimensional indexes introduce an ability to make horizontal scalability, because in our case we will create dedicated index table per each stock. So for example, having 2 stocks like Vitaly demonstrated, for example, one for Europe and another one for the United States, will have 2 independent indexes, and each of that will have own reindexation strategy. So all the data would be placed not in the one table, which will grow and grow infinitely, and actually we will end up with bottlenecking on that table, because at some point of time when, for example, when we'll have a lot of data, and actually those merchants who will use MSI will have a lot of data because that will be big merchants. So the queries to the table will get slower from the MySQL perspective. So we could come up to the bottleneck in a phase of our index table. That's why we actually decided to split index by dimension, and each of that dimension is defined by the stock. So depending on how much stocks how were declared by merchant, for example, it could be stock per each continent, like Europe, Asia, United States. It could be stock per each country, for example, like Germany, Italy, Ukraine. We will end up creating dedicated tables for each of the stock. So we will have the horizontal scalability, and actually we will also boost the performance on the MySQL operation over the tables. Thank you, Vitaly, for good presentation. And another presentation going to be shown by Lars, who actually work on the update on save, because before that we had just update on schedule, and we had to revalidate the whole index. So Lars?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody can hear me, and that's fine. I'm working on the performance issue of the inventory, and today I'm starting the refactoring of the execute list method, because we had some performance issue before, because if one product was changed, we re-index the whole index for all sources, and today I changed it to the source item. Source items is more typical, because you have a single for one SKU and one source is the entry in this table and the quantity and the status. And before the meeting, I tried to put it with integration tests. Some problems integration tests, because I have some rounding problems. I don't know why, but hopefully I can fix it tomorrow and commit it, and everything is green and finished. This is my story, and it's work in progress, but tomorrow hopefully finished. Okay.
And now, last but not the least, Valery will show the bug fixes we made in the scope of this week as well. So Valery, you can share your screen and make a presentation.
Hello everyone. I hear some echo. Here, can you mute your microphone?
You can switch voice.
Okay, I share my screen.
Oops.
Okay, during this week, we have finished a few technical tasks, and we finished a few technical tasks and provide several PRs with fixes. Firstly, I want to show that we finished to introduce one of feature from PHP 7.0, this return time declaration. We provide global refactoring of our APIs, of our SPIs, and some internal implementation. During this work, we discovered some significant bugs for us, and we was fixed. As I mentioned, this PRs now is merged, and the branch has significant changes in our code. Also, during this week, we work on Travis. As we mentioned on previous demo, one of our goals is running all kind of tests on Travis: static tests, unit integration, API functional, and this week we worked on integration tests. We provide a few fixes like wrong table name resolving, and also this PRs has been merged. And we merge a few PRs with some refactoring, like removing redundant commands, improvement our docblocks declaration, and so on. On next week, we are going to work on API functional test. We want to run API functional test on Travis builds. I think that's all.
Oktoberfest, we've started one more story from our backlog, and I believe Vadim will tell a few words about that story.
So I start work on this story. So in order to implement import-export for sources, we discussed a little bit with Igor how to implement. There are a lot of dependencies to the legacy Magento import-export module, and we decide to create a new module for this inventory import-export, and go the way with the dependencies to the Magento import-export at first, and look forward afterwards how to refactor it, how to resolve this legacy dependencies. I just started with this topic and work in progress. I hope I can show you more something more next time.
Okay. That's all for today. Unfortunately, we don't have questions from the product owner, but as I already mentioned, I believe we'll get some during the week when he will see the recording. And looks like we are running out of time, so we can discuss all the open question in a MSI Slack channel. So don't hesitate to ask the question regarding your ticket, regarding the MSI architecture design, and actually any question regarding the MSI. So thank you a lot for the presentation. It was really interesting and joyful today because there were so much participants. We have never experienced so big audience before that. And thank you for your attendance. You made this presentation great. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a nice evening.